Hey everyone, coming to you from my office because I forgot to hit the record button this morning in class. So I'm going to try to give you what I went over in our exam prep and tell you any other important information I think you need to know for the final exam and for the rest of the semester. So before we get to final exam prep, I want to talk about a few other things having to do with your quizzes and assignments. First thing is that I have extended the due date on all quizzes and assignments once again. So now I've extended and reopened everything through April 28th. You may also retake any quizzes that you have already taken once up and through April 28th. There won't be any more extensions, but I know you guys have got a lot going on. You're busy with school and work and other things, and it seems like there's a lot of people who still have some outstanding assignments and quizzes, and I don't want that to affect your grade in a negative way. So all assignments and quizzes, again, are open through April 28th, even retakes. Please make sure everything gets done by then. If you are a person who submitted assignment 3.1, which was your personal code of ethics, if you were a person who used ChatGPT or any other AI source to do that for you, you've got the chance to redo that. Just resubmit. That assignment is open again. Resubmit it. If you've done it in your own word and your own work, I'll give you 100 for it. So I want to just make sure anybody who got caught up in that is given the chance to redo it. Assignment 3.2, let's talk about for a second. That's your career prep. That is due on April 28th. If you're having any problems with getting your interview or things like that scheduled, please let me know as soon as possible. If we get to the end of that time and all of a sudden you're contacting me because you're having problems with it, I'm not going to have a whole lot of sympathy for you. I do know the Career Center's had a lot going on. They've had some restructuring going on this semester, some new personnel, and so I am sensitive to the fact that they have had some trouble accommodating all my students for everything. So I'm definitely willing to work with you on that, but just make sure that you get with me ahead of time and not once it's too late. There was a link that is posted in that assignment 3.2 to an interview prep sheet that you're required to do. The Career Center moved that to a different place on their website, and so that first link won't work. I have reposted the link that works. You'll find it in the content module for Unit 3, down there where Unit 3 Assignment 2 is posted. You'll see right there that I've explained and provide you a new link for that interview prep. So remember that is one of the things that is required for this assignment. Trying to think of the discussions assignment. If you remember, I will grade those on beginning at the end of the day on Friday, April 25th. So you've got through Friday, April 25th to do all your discussion posts. If you did all of them, and if they represent your actual opinion, your thought, and your work, I'll give you 100. If you didn't do all of them, I'll count off proportionally for that. If you did some of them, then they're obviously AI generated and not your own words and have not been personalized to your own experience and perspective and opinion, then I won't count for those as well. So make sure that you get all that done by the 25th. I think that's all in the way of things I wanted to talk about in terms of assignments and quizzes. Let's move now to the final exam. So your final exam is take home. It is self-guided in a way. I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in a second. I have posted a study guide to the content module for this week. Everything on the study guide is fair game for the exam. If it's not on the study guide, it's not on the exam. Your exam will be available for you to take at your convenience starting Thursday, April 24th and running through Friday, May 2nd. So anytime over those 9 days, you'll be able to take your final exam. Again, it is take home, it is open note. It will require the lockdown browser. So I'll put a link in the assignment for you to go to from there. But we're required to have a proctored exam, final exam for this class. That's a college-wide requirement. And so you will be required to use the lockdown browser for that. So again, you will not be able to access things through your browser like AI or like maybe some of the class materials. You may use any of your printed out notes, any notes that you've taken, the lecture outlines, anything that I've provided for you is fair game for you to use. The best way for you to prepare for this exam, in my opinion, is for you to take the study guide, print it out, and go through it and make notes on it or make notes separately of how you would answer each of those questions. You'll then be able, once the exam opens, to just go in and write your answers that way. If you are a person who sits down and opens up this final exam without having looked at the study guide, you will not do well. I would predict that you would really, really have a hard time with it. It is designed to be reflective. It's designed for you to be able to show me and tell me things that you have learned in this class, what some of your takeaways are. So I've designed all the questions to elicit responses from you that require you to take material that you've learned or that we studied or that you read and tell me how those apply to you in your own personal way. Let me read a couple of the examples, and that may make a little more sense. If you're looking at the final exam study guide, this will also make more sense. One of the questions is, looking back over the semester, what are at least 3 concepts, cases, or discussions that really stuck with you? Why those? So what I'm looking for there is you to give me back something that we studied or that you learned. Tell me what it was, why it stuck with you, what is it that resonated with you. Use your own experience and your own personal guide to go through this. So an answer like something that really stuck with me this semester was contracts. I think it's really important to understand contracts in business. That doesn't tell me anything about what you learned and how you applied it or what it meant to you. An answer like, I learned about negligence, and especially how that is, how courts look at that and how that leads to lawsuits. And in my job doing X, I began to notice instances of negligence or began to notice areas where either me or my employer might be opening ourselves up to liability by being negligent. For example, we had a front step that needed to be fixed, and I applied what I knew about negligence to realize that if we didn't do that, that we might be opening up ourselves to lawsuits for folks that need to come in our office or business or whatever it is. Again, that's an example of how you've taken something that we've actually talked about in this class and you've applied it and showed me how you learned. It doesn't have to be real life application. You could tell me about how you learned about products liability and how you never really thought about the McDonald's hot coffee case as coffee being something that could be a product that had a defect. As long as you explain to me what it was that stuck with you or why that was important or what's stuck out to you, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm not looking for you to write paragraphs upon paragraphs. I think it will take more than one sentence for you to explain these things to me. But as long as you can tell me what it is, when you answer the question, you can tell me what it is and why, using examples or because, or relating it back to things that we studied, that we discussed, maybe we had a debate in class about something, it needs to be related to our experience in class this semester. So I'm not looking for things like negligence consists of the breach of the duty of care. That's true. We did study that. That's a fact. That's good. But you're not telling me anything else beyond that basic fact. Some other questions. Was there a topic or case that you didn't expect to enjoy, but ended up really interested in? What made that shift happen? Again, personalize that answer. Was there a real world event, news story, or personal experience that suddenly made something from class feel more relevant? Share what connected. If you end up working in business, how do you think something from this class might help you avoid a legal mistake or make a better decision? Which case or topic raised questions for you about fairness, justice, or ethics in the business world? How did you wrestle with those questions? This is designed for you to self-study and self-prepare for the exam, so you get to decide what you are going to use from the course to answer these questions. You are welcome to use, again, any topic that we discussed or covered, anything that was in your outlines, anything that was in the cases that we talked about and discussed, anything in your discussion questions, any interesting points or debates or anything like that that came up with class. If you can relate anything to your personal work experience, or maybe you're an international student and something that surprised you was the way that the Americans approach this law versus how you do in your home country. That's what I'm looking for. I want you to give me your takeaways, the things that you learned in this class. And as long as you can explain those to me and tell me what those are, and as long as I can read them and realize that, yeah, this is that student's personal experience, personal work, then you're gonna get credit for it. So I'm not looking for necessarily, I might not agree with your answers. I'm not looking to see who has the best answer. I'm asking you what you thought and what you learned. So if you tell me what you think and what you learned, I'm gonna give you full credit for that. I'm not looking to make this difficult. Again, you can use any of the material that we've studied to pull from to answer these questions. So it's up to you how you use the material to apply to the final exam. There are on the study guide a group of questions called Group 1 questions. There are 13 of them. All of those are on your exam. So you're guaranteed that those first 13 questions will be on the exam. The Group 2 questions, 14 through 27, I'm going to let you choose a few of those, probably somewhere between 5 and 10. Not less than 5, but not more than 10, maybe somewhere in between to answer. So you won't need to, if you're going through and preparing for those Group 2 questions, just don't pick any more than 10 and prepare your answers for those. It'll be really easy for me when I'll pull up your exam to read it. If I read through the first 4 or 5 answers and there's nothing personal about it, it doesn't relate to your experience, it doesn't have anything to do with things we talked about or studied, that tells me that this is not original work. It's maybe AI generated or something like that, and I will not be given any credit for that. I know a lot of you online students better than you think I do. I've read all your discussion answers. I've read your personal codes of ethics. I know that, about some of you from other activities that you do. So it's not super hard for me to read through one and determine whether or not this is somebody's personal work or if it's generated by a computer. I give you in this study guide the criteria that I'm going to use when I'm grading it. Specificity. Did the response reference particular concepts, cases, or moments from class? Was the student specific about why those things stood out? Thoughtfulness. Did the response reflect on the material in a meaningful way? Did it connect to personal experiences, challenges, or real-world situations or relevance? Authenticity. Is the response in the student's voice? Does it feel personal and genuine without being overly generic? Clarity and detail. Is the reflection clearly written with sufficient detail? Does it fully address the prompt in a coherent and understandable way? I've given you some examples of typical AI-generated answers that would lack the specificity and that probably wouldn't pass wouldn't have my approval. And I've pointed out to you some problems with those. Probably a good idea to read through those. And I think for each question, each answer, I think that I've also put this on there, things to ask yourself. Does my answer feel personal? Are there references to actual things that were covered in this class? Does it read like it could be pasted into any business law class anywhere, or does it read like something that is specific to our class? So I hope that gives you some guidance. The fact that there's a study guide that's put out ahead of time also means that if you look at it ahead of time and you have questions for me about it, please feel free to text me and ask me about those. I'm more than happy to clarify anything or try to help you understand what it is that I'm asking for. I think that if you do the exam prep correctly, the exam itself won't be hard. If you don't do any prep, then it's going to be really hard for you to open up that exam and come up with, at least 20 things that you've learned and to be able to relate them to personal life experiences and things that you've done and things that you've learned. So I think I've hammered on that enough. But if anybody's confused, anybody has questions about how that works, please let me know ahead of time. If you have questions on any assignments, quizzes, anything that has to do with the class, text me 706-289-4878. Good luck to everybody on the exam. I've enjoyed having y'all in class. And if there's anything I can do for y'all in the future, please let me know. Good luck, everybody. Have a great summer.